Welcome to the 5 for 2 podcast with me, your host Adele, where we say no to careers where you're trading 5 days of misery for 2 days of fun. A place we discuss all things career, confidence, and money moves. I want to motivate, teach, and empower ambitious women to achieve more, earn more, feel more confident, and enjoy the work they do. It's all about believing you can have everything you want in your career and then going and getting it. So if you're ready, let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode. Hope you're all doing great. The job market is the job market. It's been this way for a little while, but because of AI, there are things that are changing or things that are being more cemented and more expected if you want to get job offers. And that's what this week's episode is about. I'm diving straight in. In a time where companies think everyone is using AI for their CVs and to memorize the perfect interview answers, being real is going to be the winner if you want to turn those interviews into offers. And stories do that. You guys know I've been saying this since the start of the year. Storytelling is going to be big for getting offers in 2026. Mark my words. Because of the AI thing. So many people are memorizing answers. So many people are thinking they're memorizing the perfect answer when actually, remember, AI was programmed by people. So it doesn't have the perfect answer. But people are so worried about not getting a job in this job market that they are memorizing the answers. The answers are generic because everyone is putting the same job description in and saying, help me come up with a great answer for this. They're forgetting that a great answer includes your human impact. In any job you do, you have human impact. If you can't communicate that at interview, you're going to sound like everyone else. You're going to be forgettable. And the person who knows how to story tell is getting the job. So let me help you. The reason storytelling is so big is there is actual psychology behind it. Stories are how the brain organizes reality, and it helps your brain to connect patterns. It triggers emotions. So good answers will trigger positive feelings in the other person that you're speaking to. In this case, the interviewer, who in some cases may be the person hiring for their team or for that department. Now, if they're the person hiring and you trigger the right emotion, you want to trigger positive feelings in them. So good answers will trigger positive feelings. If you get them happy, joy, whatever it is they feel positively about you, you're going to stay top of mind. Because remember, we hold on to emotions. You know how sometimes you don't remember exactly maybe what you were wearing or what you were doing in a certain time of your life, but you remember how you felt. Like you will remember how someone made you feel, whether they made you angry, sad, happy, whatever it is. We remember feelings more than we remember all the other detail. That's what you're doing in interviews. Stories create meaning for us. As humans, we like stories because they create meaning. They hold our attention when they're good and they build connection and trust. Listen, when you're telling stories, it builds familiarity with the person that you're talking to. And it makes them feel like, oh yeah, I know someone like that, or I've been in that situation, or oh, I would love to do that. Like it's helping you become familiar with that person, build connection with that person, build rapport with that person. Listen, the more rapport, the more liked that person feels towards you, the easier it's going to be for you to get that offer. I'll say it again, the more like the person feels towards you, the easier it's going to be for you to get an offer because you're going to be I was about to say rememberable. That's not even a word. You're about to be memorable. They're going to remember you. See, my brain was going too fast. I was thinking of remember and memorable all at the same time. So you're going to be remembered because you told a good story. Listen, we've seen people go viral online for storytelling, literally go viral, have millions of followers, start getting brand deals because they told a good story. We don't know if them stories are real. Have any of you ever fact checked? But yet we get involved. We get engrossed. We're like, oh, okay, I want to see the next bit. What's the next part of the story? Like, hurry up, load it up. Why do we do that? Why do we get so invested in stories that we don't even know are true? Because if you can tell a good story and it sounds true, Why would anyone sense check it? Now, I'm not saying go to interview and lie before anyone comes on here and says, I don't, you're telling us to lie. However, if you've seen one of my Instagram posts, I'm saying everyone's kind of lying, but it's not outright lying. We are only talking about positive things. So we don't lie. We just talk about the positive things in our career. Like, I'm not about to go to interview and tell them any of my negative qualities. Absolutely not. I'm not going to tell them I'm super impatient and that works in a good way and a very bad way. I'm never going to go and tell them that. Or possibly a potential future employer could be listening to my podcast and be like, I heard the episode, Adele. Anyway, I digress. Let's keep it moving. Like I said, people have gone viral for telling stories, why it works. I want you to apply that same thought process at your next interview. And the best way to tell a story is to use the C.A.R or the S.T.A.R method. The S.T.A.R method is the most well-known one. Situation, task, action, result. I prefer the C.A.R method. A lot of you know this already because I just think it's easier, it's shorter. Like for me, situation and task, sometimes like you're talking about the same sort of thing. You're talking about the situation and the task that was needed to be done. And then the action you took comes after that and the result. Because it's situation and task, people are trying to think about, okay, how do I separate situation and task? And then they end up talking about that part for too long. And then by the time they get to the action and the result, the interviewer's bored. They stop listening to you. Whereas with the C.A.R method, it's circumstance, action, result, or context, action, result. However you want to remember it. I like circumstances because whatever circumstance I was in, but also context. So give them the context. Tell them exactly what was going on. Rather than thinking, okay, what's the situation and then what's the task? Just say, we introduced Power BI and we wanted to create dashboards to make it easier for internal managers to be able to pull their own data without constantly having to go to specific departments for specific things. Yeah, so that could be the circumstance. Then you want to say, what action did you take to implement it to make as little disruption as possible to the overall business? And how has it resulted in impact? Like what impact? How was it successful? How did it maybe save time, which in turn saved money? What did it reduce? What did it increase? Like all of the things. You want to talk about the metrics. So you want to think about what was the situation. So instead of saying situation, what was the circumstance? This is the C.A.R method. What was the action that you took? And the result is the most important thing you want to talk about. What was the result? Did you save them, 22% in time wasted, which as a result increased revenue by 4%? I don't know what it was, but what did you do? Did you save your company $500,000 because they no longer were using agency? Because you brought it all in-house? Did you increase upsells to customers? Like, were you upselling more because of a new process that you brought in that was at the end of calls for closing, which helped you upsell different products? Like, what is it that you did? What was the impact? What was the result? The result is where we want to focus. Yes, we still need the first two. We need to set the stage. So when you tell a story, it needs to have a good ending, right? Who's watched a movie and been really disappointed by the ending? That's what the result is. It's the ending of a movie and you want to end big. You want to make it good. You want to make them want to have part 2, 3, and 4. Because if the person feels like when you go to the movies, if it's a really good ending, you can't wait for part 2 to come out. That's what you want. That brings to mind recently I watched Wicked, the first one, and then I couldn't wait for the second one to come out and I watched the second one. That's what you want. You want to leave people with anticipation. Bear in mind, I don't even like musicals, yet somehow my daughter convinced me to watch it and I watched it and was like, oh, I now want to see part 2. That's what you want the interviewer to feel. And they're going to feel that if you talk about a good result, a strong result. The result needs to connect to what the job you're going for is. There is no point in me going for a compliance job and waffling on about how I saved my company 1.3 million in agency fees. What? I'm going for a compliance role. I'm going to need to talk about what impact I had at my last company when it came to compliance. Right? Were my audits 90 to 100%? And previously when I took on that department or whatever it was, they were only at 50 or 60%. I now have a 98% compliance rate. I did that within 6 weeks. What's my impact and how does it relate to the job I'm applying to? So you need to have these stories ready. And the good thing is it's easy to have them ready because you're telling real life stories. You know the results because you know what you've been able to deliver. Even if you don't have all the numbers, listen, There are no numbers police. Guesstimate, approximate numbers. If you think it was like 20%, it's 20%. We don't need exact numbers. If you can get exact numbers, great. If you can go back through your files and stuff and find exact numbers of things that you did, like the metrics, great. If not, guesstimate. The job you're applying to, they're not going to call your other job and say, did she help you save 22%? Absolutely not. Listen, I'm not telling you to embellish. I'm not saying say things like, oh, I saved them 80%. No, if you only know that you saved them about 30, just tell the truth. Talk about your impact. The reason we want to focus on the result, like I said, is because the result is the thing that they care about most. But we still need to set the stage. You still need the beginning, circumstance and action. You still need to talk about what was the circumstances? What actions did you take? Because they want to see, did you take the right actions? Or were you doing nonsense? Did you do long-winded actions that you could have done something much simpler, much more streamlined to get the same result? So they're listening for that also. So I'm not saying that the first bit doesn't matter. What I'm saying is the result is your closer. The result is what seals the deal. And for those of you that prefer the STAR method, it's no different. Situation and task, you want to talk about, set the stage. The action, what action did you specifically take? And we're not talking about we. It's not team effort. We're talking about what you did. And then you want to talk about the result. I'm not saying you shouldn't talk about how you collaborated with other people, but even in collaborations, you have your own role to play. You need to talk about your role because that's where the most impact is when you're delivering a story. Tell people what happened. C.A.R and S.T.A.R work really well for behavioural questions, like tell me a time when. I don't know why they still ask questions in this way. It's 2026 and still they're asking questions like I was asked like back in the early 2000s. It's ridiculous. But yeah, tell me a time when, have you ever, things like that. But you can still use storytelling through other answers as well. Because if you're good at storytelling, you can drop it in. I'm not saying every answer shouldn't be a story because it's a bit much. We can't be telling stories on every single answer. But when we are telling a story, let's make it land and let's make ourselves memorable. Listen, when I changed industry from working with children to getting into recruitment, HR stories are what helped me. I didn't just list my transferable skills, I was able to explain them. So when I was working with children, I didn't specifically have HR experience, but I thought about what HR transferable skills I had so that I could get into sort of recruitment. And I told stories about them. I was able to explain exactly how they would work, how my skills would work in real life, in practice, because I'm telling it as a story. So I'm like, oh, this is what I did. So then someone can picture in their mind, oh, in real life, this is how it would work. So I was like, if you give me a chance, this is how it will work in recruitment. And that's how I was able to change industries. I told them how my experience dealing with difficult parents would help them when they had difficult or unhappy customers. And I talked about how difficult the parents were. And I talked about the fact that if I can convince someone whose child, that's the most important thing to most people. If I can convince someone who's really difficult, that an issue with their child, if I can calm them down and get them to see things from our perspective and get them to not pull their children out of the nursery or out of the school, then I definitely can talk to your unhappy customers about fees or recruitment costs or whatever it is, or if they're unhappy with a candidate that we've sent. Like, I'm great at calming people down. I'm great at calming down an irate parent. I'll be great. I'll be fine with you guys. Like, I've heard it all. I've been screamed at, shouted at, sworn at. That's how I told stories. Do you see? That's a story. Then people are like, oh my gosh, parents swear. Yes, they do. Because now they're interested. They want to know about my old job, even though it's not really to do with recruitment. That actually happened to me in an interview. They were like, oh my gosh, parents swear at you. I was like, absolutely. So I'm like, I don't mind if someone jumps on the phone and swears at me because I've had to be the one to keep my cool because I can't swear back. I can't do it. I'm running a nursery. I have to be the professional. I have to calm them down. I have to listen. And then I have to let them know what's happened and what we're going to do to move forward. And this is their children. So telling a story, even when you're changing industries, is helpful. So when you talk about your transferable skills, instead of listing them, explain them in the form of a story. It helps people connect the patterns. It helps people connect the dots so they can see you doing the job. And if you're not changing industry, this should be even easier because you're not even necessarily connecting dots. You're just talking about what they want to hear because you already do it. The story just upgrades your answer. That's what it really, really does. So like I said, you can use whatever experience you've currently got and tell a story about it to keep someone's attention. I'll give you another example. Again, when I went from nurseries to working in recruitment and then into HR, I spoke about how convincing and influential I was in the sense of I talked about in the form of sales because when I went into recruitment first, it was an agency recruitment. And agency recruitment means sales. You've got to do sales. You've got to get clients on board. You've got to convince them to work with you. And they were like, how are you going to be with sales? You've never done sales. I was like, listen, I'm really convincing. Any parent who used to come and do a show round in our nursery with me would always sign up to come and bring their children there. I said, my boss's conversion rate was something like 8 out of 10. Mine was 10 out of 10. They always asked me, they were like, oh, we've got parents today. Do you want to do the show round? I remember showing around a really difficult parent who'd already been to see 7 nurseries in the area. And I made it my business to ask her, like, how many nurseries have you seen? What's been the problem at those nurseries? I then addressed those problems through my show round when I was showing her around, addressed them so that she wouldn't have those issues when asking me questions. She had different questions for me. And then I answered every question she had. She barely had any questions for me because that's what made me good at show rounds. I anticipated what people would ask by making sure I got some background on them and having a chat with them. I'm going to be able to do that in recruitment. I'm going to find out what they've been struggling with, why they haven't been able to find the candidates. And then I'm going to tell them how I'm going to be able to do that for them. Listen, my second, because my first interview did not go well. We all know that story. My second recruitment interview, my third recruitment interview, I got the offers the same day that evening. Bear in mind, I've never worked in recruitment a day in my life. One was for a headhunting company and one was for a recruitment agency. Both offered me the job that evening. One, the headhunting company, offered me 10K more than I was even looking for. I didn't take that job, but that's a whole nother story. There's reasons behind it. And I'm happy with my decision because it's gotten me to where I am today, talking to you guys on this podcast. But like I said, stories invoke emotion. Stories make people want to know more. Stories are what are going to get you offers in this job market. Yes, there are other things you're going to need to do at interview. Yeah, confidence. You need to be confident. When we're telling stories about ourselves, guess what? We tend to be more confident. Even if you're not the most confident person, when you're talking about something that is truthful and real, and you're talking about your actual strengths, you come across more confident because it's easy. When people say to me, oh, Adele, I can't believe you're an introvert, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, because when I show up online and I'm talking about real deal things. I'm talking about my clients. I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about things that I know that work. So I come across confident because it's my zone of genius, because actually it's what I do. It's what I know. It's easy because I'm having a conversation about who I actually am. When you tell a story, that's why it hits harder at interview, because it's who you actually are. And then you weave in all the impact that you have and the numbers. Now, talking about numbers might not be natural to you, and that might be the part that you need to practice. But learning to tell a story using the C.A.R and the S.T.A.R method, oh my gosh, super important. So, just a reminder, this year, storytelling is what's going to keep you front of mind. So I want everyone front and center in their interviews, telling a story, closing the deal, letting them know why you're the perfect fit for the job. And remember, the result is so important. What impact did you have? This year, companies are hiring based on impact because a lot of companies are losing money. We all know retail are making cuts. So many industries are making cuts. Listen, hospitality are making cuts. There are so many industries currently making cuts, making people redundant, laying people off. Even tech, as much as tech is growing, new areas of tech are growing, like AI and stuff, but other areas have been made smaller, they've been reduced, and people have lost their jobs. While companies are losing money, they want people that can come and help them to grow. Your impact, the results you have delivered is what's going to prove to them or make them feel like you have the potential to help them turn their profits around. I don't care what level you're at, whether it's junior, mid-management or senior. Companies now care about impact because they cannot afford to hire someone and not believe. Because remember, it's all about believability. It's not about the actuality. There are so many people who will actually help them make money. But if you can't make them believe that at interview, they're not hiring you. So you need to make them believe that you're going to impact their profits positively, whether that's making or saving them money. It's not always about making money. It's about saving money. Compliance saves companies hundreds and thousands in lawsuits. Yeah. So you're saving money. How will you talk about that in your next interview? How do you positively impact revenue? Most companies care about profit. If you're not in an industry that cares about profit and they care about something else, whatever the currency is, if you're a teacher and they care about the Ofsted results and the kids' grades, how have you impacted children's grades that you have taught? How have you impacted students, older students, whoever you're teaching? How have you impacted the grades? What is the currency at the company that you work for? And how have you positively impacted that? What are your success stories? Every interview, you can tell the same success stories. If you interview at 3 different companies, you can tell the same story 3 times, because each time you tell the story, you'll get better and better and better at it. You don't need to have thousands of stories. Yes, you need to have a few on hand for each interview, but you can use those same ones at each interview, if that makes sense. Different interviews for different companies. Obviously, if you have 3 interview rounds with one company, you can't use the same stories in all 3 interview rounds. It would be a bit much. And also, you're probably not going to need to storytell in all 3 rounds of interviews, because each round will be slightly different. Like I said, storytelling is so helpful, because if someone says to you, like if I ask an interviewer a question at the end and I'm like, what's the biggest gap right now on the team that you need to bridge with this role? And then they say to me like, oh, we need someone who has really good compliance knowledge. Because recently we failed, I don't know, whatever it was, like a quality assurance audit. Now imagine I say to them, oh my gosh, like I love helping to turn compliance around. There was a time when my boss asked me to stay late because she was going through files and we were being audited the next morning, and she realized someone on the team's files were missing a lot of key information, and I stayed and helped her do it, and we actually were able to pass, and it was a CQC thing. And I'll be able to say like we were able to pass the CQC audit the next day, and because of that I got a bonus. See how I was able to just drop that in? We're not even interviewing anymore. I'm asking them questions, but I'm still reinforcing why I'm good for this job, because when they answer me with my questions that I've got at the end, I then re-answer to reinforce how good I am using a story. And do you see how that story wasn't long? You don't need to be telling 5-hour stories, 2 minutes. Story takes 2 minutes, takes a minute. Don't even take that long. Yes, I speak fast, so my stories might be even quicker. But even if you speak at normal speed like this, that story would not have been a long story. That was a quick story. I got it in, I got it out, but I left an impression. So like I said, 2026, storytelling all the way. If you need more help with your storytelling, head over to my Substack. I have got resources galore. I have got interview masterclasses if you like to, if you're more visual and you like to listen to someone talking and watch a PowerPoint, or if you like to read, I have got my updated interview guide. Listen, it's full of 2026 strategies. I updated it right at the beginning of the year, ready for anyone who needed it. £17. It's a no-brainer almost. But if you need help with your interviews, there's a little section in there on storytelling, section on AI. It's got all the things, guys. But this year, storytelling is the one, I promise you. If you listen to this and then you use this technique and you get the offer, please come back and let me know. Drop it in the comments, DM me. If you've used this before because you've listened to some of my previous podcast episodes, and I talk about storytelling, it's not new. It's just that this year I think it's going to be extra important. If you've used it and it worked, drop it in the comments. Let people know. I want you to share your experience with storytelling. Also, do you find storytelling easy in interviews? Is it easy to talk about yourself in the storytelling form rather than when you try to just answer the question really generically or in the way that you think they want you to answer? What's easier? I find storytelling way easier. I find it easier to think about a situation I've been in because it makes it easier to answer the questions. Anyway, good luck if you've got interviews coming up. And I will speak to you in the next episode. I hope this episode gave you exactly what you needed and motivated you to confidently take steps towards your next career move. If you enjoyed it, screenshot and share it on your socials, tag me on Instagram, and come join my community of amazing women working on leveling up their confidence and career. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.